A rocket just launched two tiny robots toward Mars, and the era of space monopoly may have ended. January 16th, 2025. Cape Canaveral. A new rocket, taller than a 30-story building, roared to life for the very first time. This wasn't SpaceX. This wasn't NASA's SLS. This was Blue Origin's New Glenn. And strapped inside its payload fairing were two spacecraft with a mission that could rewrite what we know about Mars. Their names? ESCAPADE, the Escape and Plasma Acceleration and Dynamics Explorers. Two identical probes, no bigger than washing machines, now hurtling through the void on a 7-month journey to the Red Planet. But here's what most people missed. This launch wasn't just about Mars. It was a declaration, a signal flare, a moment that shifted the balance of power in the new space race. For over a decade, SpaceX has dominated. Falcon 9, Starship, Crew Dragon. Elon Musk became synonymous with the future of space. But on that January morning, Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin proved something the world had been waiting to see. SpaceX is no longer alone. And the implications? They reach far beyond rockets and billionaires. Let's start with Mars. Because ESCAPADE isn't going there to take pretty pictures or hunt for ancient microbes. It's going to solve a mystery that's haunted planetary scientists for decades. Mars is dying. Slowly. Silently. Its atmosphere is being stripped away, molecule by molecule, into the emptiness of space. Every second, about 100 grams of Martian air vanishes forever. That's roughly 2 sticks of butter, just gone. Why? Because Mars lost something Earth still has. A magnetic field. That invisible shield generated by our planet's molten core, deflecting lethal solar radiation and solar wind like a cosmic force field. Mars had one too, billions of years ago. But its core cooled. The dynamo stopped. And without that protection, the sun's relentless bombardment began peeling Mars apart. Today, Mars is a ghost of its former self. Its atmosphere is less than 1% as thick as Earth's. Water that once flowed in rivers and filled ancient oceans either froze beneath the surface or evaporated into oblivion. But we don't fully understand how this happens. That's where ESCAPADE comes in. Except the crime took 4 billion years. And the victim is an entire world. But let's rewind, because ESCAPADE's journey to Mars almost didn't happen. Originally, NASA planned to launch these probes in 2024, on a different rocket entirely. But delays piled up, budgets shifted, and suddenly, DE was stranded. No ride, no launch window, no backup. Enter Blue Origin. Jeff Bezos' company, long mocked as the tortoise in a race dominated by SpaceX's hair, offered something unexpected. The inaugural flight of New Glenn, their largest, most ambitious rocket ever built. A vehicle that had never flown, never been tested beyond simulations and ground trials. Most mission planners would say no. The risk is astronomical. First flights fail more often than they succeed. Rockets explode. Systems malfunction. NASA's own history is littered with first flight disasters. But NASA said yes. Why? Because the alternative was waiting years, missing the Mars launch window, watching the science opportunity evaporate. And because Blue Origin made them an offer they couldn't refuse, we'll do it for free. January 16th, 7:02 a.m. New Glenn's 7BE4 engines, each producing 550,000 pounds of thrust, ignited simultaneously. The ground shook, the air cracked, and 313 feet of steel, carbon fiber, and ambition lifted skyward. 11 minutes later, ESCAPADE was in orbit. Perfect insertion, flawless trajectory, and in a stunning display of engineering confidence, Blue Origin even recovered the first stage booster, landing it on a barge in the Atlantic Ocean. The tortoise just caught the hare. For context, let's talk about what SpaceX accomplished, because their dominance isn't an accident, it's a revolution. Reusable rockets, rapid launch cadence, vertical integration. SpaceX turned space access from a government-funded monopoly into a commercial service. Falcon 9 has launched over 400 times. Starlink has deployed thousands of satellites. Starship, the largest rocket ever built, is in active testing. Elon Musk didn't just compete with NASA, he redefined the game. But monopolies, even benevolent ones, are dangerous. They stifle innovation, inflate costs, concentrate power, and space is too important, too vast, too central to humanity's future to be controlled by a single company. New Glenn changes that equation. At 313 feet tall, it's taller than Falcon Heavy. Its payload capacity, 45 metric tons to low Earth orbit, rivals SpaceX's workhorse. And unlike Falcon 9, New Glenn was designed from the ground up for full reusability. The booster returns. The fairing is recovered. Every flight is a step toward the economic model that makes space sustainable. Blue Origin isn't trying to beat SpaceX, they're trying to join them. To create redundancy. To prove that the future of space doesn't hinge on one man, one company, one vision. So what does this mean for Mars? ESCAPADE will arrive in November. If successful, it'll spend at least one Martian year, nearly 2 Earth years, mapping the planet's atmospheric escape. Scientists will finally understand the mechanisms, the energy transfer, the particle dynamics. And that knowledge? It's not just academic. If we're serious about Mars colonization, and NASA, SpaceX, China, and a dozen private ventures absolutely are, we need to know how to protect habitats from radiation, how to generate artificial magnetic fields, how to preserve any atmosphere we might terraform in the future. ESCAPADE is reconnaissance, a scouting mission for the civilization we haven't built yet. But there's something deeper here, something almost poetic. Mars is a warning, a monument to planetary fragility. It reminds us that atmospheres aren't permanent, that magnetic fields can fail, that life-sustaining conditions are rare, precious, and astonishingly delicate. We look at Mars and see what Earth could become. And yet, we also see opportunity. Because if Mars once had rivers and rain, if it once harbored conditions where life could emerge, then perhaps it still hides traces of that history. Frozen microbes beneath the ice, organic molecules in ancient lake beds, chemical signatures in the rocks. ESCAPADE won't find life. That's not its mission. But the data it collects will guide the missions that do. The drills, the sample returns, the human explorers. And what about the space race? The truth is, we need competition. Not for ego, not for profit, but for survival. Space is hard. Rockets explode, missions fail, companies collapse. If humanity's future depends on a single launch provider, we're one catastrophic failure away from stagnation. But if 2 companies, or 3, or 10, can reach orbit reliably, affordably, and sustainably, then redundancy becomes resilience. Competition becomes innovation. And the dream of becoming a spacefaring species transforms from fantasy into inevitability. Blue Origin's successful first flight wasn't just a technical achievement, it was a psychological shift. A reminder that space doesn't belong to one person, one nation, one ideology. It belongs to everyone willing to reach for it. November 2025. 2 small robots will begin their silent vigil above Mars. They'll watch as the solar wind strips atoms from the upper atmosphere. They'll measure, record, transmit. And back on Earth, scientists will analyze the data. Engineers will refine the models. Planners will update the blueprints for habitats, shields, and terraforming strategies. Mars is waiting. Not as a destination, but as a mirror. It shows us what we might lose and what we might become. 2 tiny spacecraft, 1 aging planet, and a question humanity has carried since we first looked up at the night sky and wondered, are we alone or are we just not home yet? The answer is out there, and for the first time in history, we have the rockets, plural, to go find it.